Right now, the GOP front runner by far for the Republican nomination for governor. That'll be decided June 13th in a primary open to any registered voter. You can just go in. You can say, I want to vote in the Republican primary or the Democratic primary. You can't switch and swatch. You get one ballot either way. And of course, it's not binding for the election as there is no runoff. So plurality wins, whatever the number is. So that's how that works. And that's going to be June 13th. 3 candidates in the race on the Republican side for governor, frontrunner Ed Gillespie, who is with us now, State Senator Virginia Beach Frank Wagner, and Chairman of Prince William County Corey Stewart. Those are the 3 choices you'll have on the Republican ticket. Joining us now, Ed Gillespie. Ed, great to have you, man.
Great to be back with you, John. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, we just had Carly Fiorina on for an hour, and she's one of the people that have backed your run for governor. And, man, she is a very smart lady. I'll tell you that. We just had her on for an hour. We talked about just about everything under the sun, and you got a lot of good people behind your candidacy, Ed. I'll tell you that.
Well, Carly's great, and I've known her a long time. We've worked together. I was so impressed by her run for the presidential nomination. And she is a proud Virginian, as you know, and I'm very honored to have her support and the support of so many other Virginians across the Commonwealth. You know, John, a couple of weeks ago, we crossed 6,000 volunteers. We have a great grassroots army out there. The G-Force is growing every day, and our ground game, I've not seen anything like it in Virginia ever. And as you know, I've been involved in races here for a long time.
Well, look, it's tough to get volunteers to do anything, and having run the Trump campaign as co-chairman and chairman from Virginia during the Super Tuesday primary, we didn't have a lot of money to spend. Same thing. I mean, we had masses of volunteers all over the place, and do not underestimate the power of what that kind of a volunteer army can do. Now, also, I was at your headquarters the other day, and lo and behold, I saw your new RV there. Now, that thing's big and impressive. And I told Glenn Davis, I said, now, Glenn Davis, that's an RV. That thing was, I don't know where you're going in that.
On the road, it was funny. We were on our way to Giles, and we both ended up, coincidentally, right at the same gas station, filling up at the same time. And, you know, I just felt like it was time, John. We're building, you know, so many crowds and things like that. The RV does give a feel of an event no matter where you go. And it also, you know, frankly, it's a good use of campaign funds in that it builds name ID. And that's important, obviously, in a governor's race.
Look, you guys are going to have an RV off, right? No question. But, you know, you got to get around. And I appreciate the fact that you've been all over the state. I want to get to some of your policies that you come out with. One thing you can always count on Ed Gillespie for is he's always going to have policies that come out. You've come out with an ethics reform package in Virginia. You look at what just happened in Alabama. That's an embarrassment for them. A lot of ethics issues there. Can you outline, Ed, to our audience what your, if you get elected governor, what your proposed ethics reform package would be?
Absolutely, John. I call it the Faith in Our Government for All Virginians plan. And FAITH is an acronym for fairness, accountability, integrity, transparency, and honesty. And, you know, we need to make it easier for Virginians to hold our elected officials accountable, to have input in our policies in Richmond. And we need greater transparency. And so I'll hit on a few of the highlights from it. One is just in terms of the governor's office and the executive branch. I would immediately upon taking office sign Executive Order number 1, and it would make clear that I will accept 0 gifts and my family will accept 0 gifts, and all of my appointees will take no gifts. So a gift ban across the board, and that's just cleaner and easier to deal with than trying to keep tabs on who gave what and is it equal to $100 and that kind of thing. And that's not to say, by the way, we're not going to be jerks about it. If someone, presents us a tie at the Chamber of Commerce or a coffee cup or a foreign dignitary comes, we're not going to shove it back in their face, but we'll put it in a library or a warehouse or somewhere for the people of Virginia. Maybe we'll have a yard sale at the end of 4 years and give the proceeds to charity, but I'm not taking something and put it on my mantle in my house. We're not there to serve for personal benefit. We're there to serve the people. And That'll be, one of the first things that we put in place. I'm also going to impose, one of the toughest lobby bans. We'd be in the, top 10 states in terms of toughness on this new policy. And the way it stands now, if you work at, let's say, the Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ, when you leave there, you have a cooling off period or a ban for a year. In my case, it's going to be through the duration of my administration. You can't lobby your former colleagues at all. If you leave after a year and a half, the ban goes for 2.5 years. Now, if you leave within 6 months of the term ending, then I would double the ban to 2 years, in which case you couldn't lobby the next administration for a year and a half. And any lobbyist who's appointed to a board or commission cannot lobby that board or commission or the department or agency that oversees it. So from the executive branch perspective, pretty tough medicine on the ethics front, but also greater transparency. We will live stream on a quarterly basis cabinet meetings. We'll have those cabinet meetings outside Richmond. We'll be in Southside and Southwest Virginia and the Valley and the Northern Neck, so that people can have greater access to me and to my appointees. And we'll also require public comment for our boards and commissions and departments and agencies. And that includes both the transparency and the comment periods would apply to our boards of visitors at our public colleges and universities. On the legislative branch side, it is time that we adopt a ban on personal use of campaign funds. We're one of 5 states that does not have that. And I've talked to our legislators, and they are supportive of a responsible ban on personal use of campaign funds. And also, John, I would ban, in terms of campaign finance, we have right now a blackout. You cannot raise and solicit money when the General Assembly is in session.
Yes.
But that's for the general session. I would extend that to days that the House and Senate are voting in a veto session or in special session as well. And lastly, I would ban what I call bait and switch campaign practices. You cannot raise money into a campaign account to run for one office and then take that money and use it to run for another office. And I remember I was struck a lot of times I would find myself in these debates when Denver Riggleman was running thinking, boy, he really makes a lot of sense. And, that was one of his points. It's hard for a citizen who's not sitting in elected office, small business owner like him, to raise the money to run statewide when other people have raised money for accounts and then are able to transfer hundreds of thousands of dollars for an office they were seeking, a different office. It's also not fair to the hardworking Virginians who make a contribution thinking they're given for somebody to run for an office. It has the effect of making it harder for non-elected officials to compete in our political process and is an unfair advantage to sitting office holders. So this is some pretty tough medicine, but I think we're ready for it, and I think it will ensure that Virginians can have faith in our elected officials and in our process in Richmond.
And I love the bait and switch piece of your ethics reform package because that is very unfair to newcomers trying to seek office because you get somebody that look, just so that my audience knows this is how it works. Let's say you're a supervisor somewhere or you're a member of city council or a mayor or something like that. I mean, you raise a ton of money from developers, all right? I mean, it's how the thing works. You raise a ton of money. Or let's say you're in the House or the state Senate, you're on an influential committee, you're going to raise a ton of money from people that want access. I mean, this is how the game is played. You can debate it one way or the other. It's how America runs. And then you run for another office. You can take all that money, which was given to you for one office to run for re-election or whatever, and then you just transfer it over to run for lieutenant governor or for whatever, and that makes it very difficult on somebody coming in new. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I want to get back to the lobby ban, though. And honestly, 12 months, I mean, that's not a very long period of time. So I could be with your administration in a particular department, then I leave, I maybe do consulting work for a year, and then I'm back lobbying, making big dollars. I mean, do you really think 12 months is doing anything?
No, and that's why I doubled it to 2 years and the duration of my administration. If you were to leave my administration after a year, that lobby ban would be 3 years. And I think that's the right way to do it. Like I say, it would be, there are only 8 states right now that have such a stringent measure. But I think it's a good way to make sure people have confidence that special interests aren't having undue influence over policy making.
Okay, so I got a text question here from Corey in Danville who says, so ask Ed, what happens to money in a campaign account for House of Delegates, for example, if they run for a higher office and then win? And let's say you're Davis, you run for lieutenant governor, you win, your ban was in place, your bait and switch was in place, he's got $150,000 in his House of Delegates account, which he couldn't access under your new law proposed to run for lieutenant governor. What would happen to that $100,000?
You could give it back to the donors who gave it to you in the first place.
Oh, I love that.
You could also use it to help others get elected. I would not extend. I wouldn't say that if and this happens all the time, as you know, John, as well. And I think it's reasonable. You have oftentimes state senators who are unopposed or in a pretty safe seat, and they'll help out some of their colleagues who are in a tough race.
Right.
And so, you could give money to other campaigns and help colleagues who are in tough races, and that's fine. That's not self-advancement of your own political ambition. And so there'd be a lot of options for someone in that situation. Okay,
good question and good answer. Ed, let's get to the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. We've been fighting this battle for a long time. About a week ago, you came out in favor of the pipeline. By the way, I'm also in favor of the pipeline. All 33 General Assembly members of Hampton Roads area, everybody in Central Virginia behind it. You have complete bipartisan backing, yet neither Democratic candidate for governor, Tom Perriello, which I have as the front runner right now, or the current lieutenant governor is in favor of the pipeline. Is this going to be a campaign issue if you win?
Yes, it is. And the fact is that we can make sure we develop that pipeline, construct it, and be respectful of private property rights and protect our environment. But we need that pipeline for thousands of good-paying jobs, not just in the construction of it, but long-term. One of the reasons, as you know, John, because you live there, people tend to think of the pipeline as running down the valley, which obviously it does, but it also comes out to Hampton Roads. And in terms of the infrastructure we need to foster advanced manufacturing jobs, and we have shed 69,000 manufacturing jobs here in Virginia in the past decade. We need to foster the kind of environment that allows for us to attract investment and make it easier to have advanced manufacturing jobs in the Commonwealth. The pipeline, I think, as part of our energy infrastructure, is critical to that. And the fact is, when you look at the Democrats, they have spent their time, Ralph Northam and Tom Perriello, left and lefter, as I call them, just trying to outdo one another in terms of an anti-growth, anti-jobs agenda at a time when, as we speak this morning, John, Virginia is in the bottom 10 states on a quarterly basis in economic growth. Virginia. That is just infuriating. We should be first in the country in economic growth, Virginia. When you look at our assets, our port, our people, our fertile lands, our natural resources, our great colleges and universities, our natural beauty and historic landmarks, and our location, we should be number one in the country in economic growth. But we've had 3 straight years now where more people have moved out of Virginia than into Virginia. That had never happened at all. From the time they started collecting that data in 1978, now we've had 3 straight years of it, and that reflects the lack of opportunity here. And we've dropped from number 1 on the CNBC list of best states for business. Now we're not even in the top 10. Most recently fell from 12 to 13. And the Democrats seeking the governorship are only going to impose more policies that will hurt our ability to attract more investment, to make it easier to open a new business and expand an existing one, and for, frankly, our young people and our retirees to stay in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And that's why I've proposed a 10% across-the-board cut in our individual income tax rates. They were put in place in 1972. They've never come down since, 45 years. It is time for us to reorient our economic development policies here in Virginia, stop being whale hunters, and start growing our own whales.
Okay, well, we had Governor Terry McAuliffe on the other day, and he painted an opposite picture. Ed Gillespie, Governor McAuliffe said, look, I've got the lowest unemployment in Virginia, the third lowest of any state in the United States. I guess it was 3.8%. And he also said this past month, Virginia had the lowest number of jobless claims since Jimmy Carter was president. So McAuliffe is saying, look, I've got an economic engine going here. Just look at the jobs I've created. How do you respond to that?
Well, he forgot to mention that last year in Virginia, we hit a 10-year low in labor force participation rate. And that is a factor in the unemployment rate and jobless claims as well. It's not a good factor. And we've got too many Virginians who are working part-time jobs who want to be working full-time jobs. And for a decade, we've been swapping out high-paying jobs for low-paying jobs. Mm-hmm. And my plan, the 10% across-the-board rate cut, would not only result in nearly $1,300 a year in the pockets of the average family of four in the Commonwealth, it would also create, when fully implemented, over 53,000 full-time, good-paying, private sector jobs. That's a 25% increase over current projections. We need those jobs, John. And, you can paint a rosy scenario all you want. As I travel the Commonwealth, I can tell you, parents are concerned about opportunities for their children graduating from high school and from college. We're seeing people net out migration in the Commonwealth, and we are not competitive with surrounding states, and it's time we become competitive with surrounding states.
Well, look, I love your tax code plan. I've said this on the air. Family of four in Virginia. This is average family of four in Virginia. Ed Gillespie's tax cut plan, if it were implemented into law, would save $1,300. That $1,300 annually, that's $110 a month. I got to tell you, Ed, for a lot of families, and I know you've traveled the state, and to a lot of our listeners, I have a very blue-collar working audience. That's why I have the best audience in the United States. $110 a month means something. I mean, it means taking your family to the movies. I mean, it means going out for dinner. It's a big deal.
Being able to take your family to Busch Gardens.
Yep.
I mean,
it's a big deal,
and
Ed.
People can spend that money better than the government knows how to. We have to have faith in people to spend their hard-earned money as they see fit. And it would also, obviously, so it would provide some much-needed relief to too many Virginians who have been working for the same wages for years now. But their costs have gone up for health care and housing and college and food. Right. And they're feeling squeezed, and we need to provide them that relief, but at the same time create over 53,000 good-paying jobs.
Look, I love statues, but I want 1,300 if that's all right. Okay, we're out of time. I just got to say that I got a text here from Brian in Chesapeake who said, ask Ed, but Ed, I've already answered it. He said, ask Ed which candidates of either party running now have violated his bait and switch, which I think, Ed, everybody likes. And I've already answered the question, Ed, on your behalf. Checks in the mail. Glenn, Jill, Bryce, Frank, Corey, and Ralph. Those are the ones that violated almost everybody that's running for something. Ed, thanks
I'm not sure, in every instance, to be honest with you. And, look, I'm looking forward. One of the points I made in unveiling this is that leadership is not just about responding to problems. It's anticipating them and getting out ahead of them. And I believe that these policies enacted will be good for Virginia going forward. And I'm looking at the future and building a future that is better for all Virginians. And this plan, as well as the tax cut plan and all of the other policies I'll continue to roll out in the course of this campaign, that is my singular focus. You are no doubt the policy candidate in this campaign. Ed, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, John. Great to be back with you. Good. We appreciate the conversation. More information, just Google Ed Gillespie. It's all right there. You can be 6,001. And edforvirginia.com. edforvirginia.com. If you sign up to be a volunteer, you can be 6,001. You get a prize of some kind. Ed, thanks for being with us, man. You bet, John. Good to be with you. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We'll be right back.